Hi, welcome to the Experience Podcast. I am a multi-dimensional, infinite spiritual being that's expressing right now in this present moment through a human vessel. My name is Neal. When people say my name, I answer when my name is said. And with me is Dennis. And Dennis, introduce yourself. And before you do that, I just want to acknowledge that I'm really grateful to be in this conversation and in this present moment right now. And so thank you. And please introduce yourself and we'll continue.
Yes, my name is, people call me Dennis, and I'm here and grateful to be here. And if you are new to this channel, and if this is the first video that you've watched of Earthwaking, or not Earthwaking, but of the Experience podcast, make sure that you like, comment, subscribe, share this video. There will be a lot of links in the description. And there'll be donation links. And the donation links are for planting into fertile soil. If we are in the matrix, or if we are in, if we're planting seeds and it's not going into fertile soil, it won't produce fruit. And this is an invitation to plant seeds into fertile soil, because how do I know it's fertile? Because I look around me and there is fruit and abundance of food, water, and shelter all over, in the physical reality all around me. And so that's how I know it's physical, or good soil. And so that's an invitation.
So so if a person decides to take initiative, they're like, all right, I'm feeling aligned with now putting my money where the value of my heart's at. I'm now looking to contribute into authenticity. I'm now looking to contribute into food. Food what? Well, food sovereignty, water sovereignty, like shelter for people to have a roof over their head. When people choose to invest into these things, authenticity, food sovereignty, water sovereignty, an abundance of community, an abundance of purpose, spiritual connection, when they're donating, how does one decide to take initiative?
I can't speak for anyone else, but for Dennis, how I decide to take initiative is I look at the fruits. So if I have been planting seeds and they have not been multiplying and increasing, I will reconsider on where I'm planting and what the soil conditions are, um, and all other various factors. And, in the Bible, it talks about be fruitful and multiply. And so that's also in the planting of seeds. And with our abundance, with our wealth, it's not just having kids, it's also in the having little money babies sprout up all over the place. And I'm not speaking just money, because like dollar bills, because the dollar is soon to be toilet paper and used for fire starter, because of the amount that is in circulation in this present moment, and that's increasing by the day, soon to be so much that it will be, if it's not already, helicopter money. And so going back to your question, it's, for me, it's all about observing the fruit. Like, before I was in this community in Costa Rica and not planting in fertile soil, what I was doing is I was perpetuating greed, wars, poverty, child trafficking, um, just all the things that go along with the Babylonian system. And so when I look at the fruits of what we're doing here, and I look at the fruits of what the dollar system is doing of enslavement, poverty, greed, division, indoctrination, like all these things, I am choosing to plant my seeds in a fertile soil and specifically into Earth Waking Bank. And there will be more details in the coming weeks about this Earth Waking Bank that is being established in this moment for the new earth, for bringing the kingdom of heaven down to earth and in what God's original design was. So stay tuned, as this is very exciting information. And now, did that answer your question?
Well, it answered my question because what I heard, so an aspect of it, but I don't think it fully answered it. And what I heard was that like you make decisions based on the fruit of what those decisions are going to produce. And what if you don't know the fruit that the decision is going to produce? What if you got to make a decision, but you can't look far enough in the future to where you know the ripple that it's going to have? How do you make a decision in that case?
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
So, first off, is it going to get me closer to love, or is it going to take me towards fear or anything related to fear? And also, am I making a decision from my head or my heart? So, it's not that it's not a bad thing to make a decision from my head. It's just that it's not letting making the decisions from the head have me and me having it. So being aware of like our minds are here as a tool, but not to let that tool have me. So it's also very important what it is that I want to achieve. Because based on what I want to achieve is going to be determined on how I will respond and make decisions. So in this moment and the direction I'm moving in is towards love. I'm moving towards love in every single moment and getting closer to God in every single moment. So I choose to make decisions in this moment from a place of love and checking in with like, is this going to lead me closer to God? And if it's not, I say no. And if it is, I say yes. And sometimes even after making the decision, I'm not perfect, and actually I am perfect. And so even though sometimes I make decisions from my head, I still use those decisions to get me closer to God. After having made the decision and made a course correction and been like, oh, and I choose to create a different context and have a different perspective.
Yeah. So in this scenario, what I'm hearing is you're making decisions based on where your finish line is, where your end goal is, where like you have a orientation, you have a direction, and you might not even know what that finish line entirely looks like or what that direction entirely looks like. But it's a focus point and it's something to move in the direction of. And and so I hear you make decisions based on if you're moving in the direction of what you're focusing on, and um, and you only ever making decisions based on that?
That is my goal, and not always. No. No.
What's the where are the other? How are you making the other decisions then?
Actually, that was in the past. So now that I'm feeling into the question, I do feel that every moment is leading me closer to God. Why? Because I said so. And because I choose to surrender and I'm open to new possibilities, new perspectives, new ideas, suggestions. Like I don't have a solid path. And so, what was your question again?
If all of your decisions are being made from the perspective of having an orientation or having a goal or a finish line, maybe you don't know what the finish line is, but you're making decisions based on if they're taking you away or taking you in the opposite direction of what you're focused on, or if they're moving you towards it. And then my question is, um, when you're making a decision that is having you move towards it, is that your only gauge for how you make decisions? Is it bringing me closer to God, or is it having me move away from? Is that your only gauge,
No.
or do you have other gauges of how you make decisions? And then, if so, what are those other gauges?
So, I also recognize in the question that I also have a commitment to bring heaven to earth and building and co-creating these communities around the world. And so that's another. So all my decisions are made from that context. And really, those are the only two registers that I look through. Like, as far as, are they going to get me closer to God, or are they going to assist in establishing God's kingdom here on earth? Those are the only two.
And they might be the same register.
Very well, yes. Very well. Could be. Yes. How do you make decisions?
Yeah, it's. I think I only have one register, and is it a God thing or is it a man thing? And if it's a God thing, then it's a yes. And if it's a man thing, it's like no.
And how do you determine the difference?
Discernment, but the discernment at this point is a growing process. It's not exact.
So if you were to say in this moment, up until this moment, how has it been up until this moment?
How has discernment been?
Yes, like how do you
Like, how do I
discern?
navigate discernment?
Right, right.
Well, I see God as being synonymous with love. So if it's loving energy, it's godly energy. Um, Now, so I'm looking at like ways of being. So like a way of being peaceful, a way of being accepting, a way of being compassionate and grateful, and then literally bringing and being those ways of being, and from those ways of being, what isn't those ways of being is usually shit that is either being brought up or falling away, uh, but it's still God, but it's not godly to stay attached to them or to just like stay reminiscing on them, like bringing the past into the present and just keep focusing on it. So I think the discernment comes from like being peaceful, being loving, being compassionate, and then discerning in the moment, like, is what I'm going to do have me still be peaceful and compassionate and loving, and then also discerning, am I going to get anything if I make this decision? Do I need anything from making this decision? Am I going to lose something if I make this decision? Do I have something to gain if I make this decision? Do I have an aversion if I make this decision? Do I have an attachment if I make this decision? All these things play into it because if there's any aspect of that in it, then that's a man decision. And if there's no if there's complete neutrality and peace and gratitude and ease with the decision, then that's a God decision. It's really simple. There's no figuring it out. It's just, this is the obvious decision. Love would obviously take this step. And that's not always easy. So it can be very simple, but love can be also confrontational. So it might be very simple where it's just like, hey, take this step, but you're like your ego is freaking out because the step that love is asking you to take it's a simple step that literally is only going to affect you in the short term. So your physical body, love is like, hey, take this step, and in the next 5 minutes you're going to be totally affected. But in the next 5 minutes, it's actually not even going to affect anybody else. But then that same decision, 100 years from now, when your physical body is no longer here, it's no longer going to be affecting your physical body. 100 years from now, it's now going to be affecting other people. So, taking into consideration what would love do now that would of what kind of impact is my decision going to have 10 years from now? What kind of impact is my decision going to have 100 years from now? And then literally asking, love, what would you have me do here? And then actually listening and making a decision based on the listening you've received. And often I've received listening from love, and I've even made the opposite decision of the listening that I've received. So I've also done both, which is when you hear love, but you make a man decision. And you can only listen to love if you can hear man decisions. Because if you don't hear man decisions, you don't hear love, and you're only just making man decisions.
How do you distinguish the difference?
If you're needing something, if you're attached to an outcome, if you're going to lose something, if you decide this, is what I've already distinguished. I've distinguished how to make God decisions. Just everything the opposite of what I've distinguished is the man decisions. So that's how I make decisions. And as you're seeing, is that it's not a clear cut, do this and you're going to get that. It's not that. I think decision making is a profoundly spiritually connected process between a soul and the divine. And that is the only relationship required for decision making. I think if it needs to go through any other medium other than direct connection, then it generates distortion. And so I think this direct connection, this intimate connection with source is essential. And because of that, it is also, it varies for people because of that direct connection. Like what varies is the process. The process is not the same.
Yes. One thing that I do want to add is, and this lesson I've just received in the past 2 weeks, and I spoke about it on the last podcast, is allowing our yes to be yes and the no being no. And it is very, very, very important. Because if we don't make decisions, whether it's a yes or a no, and we're in that gray area, people don't know where we're at. And we most likely will get something other than what we want. And then my ego in the past, it has not received what I wanted, and because I was wishy-washy. I didn't know I didn't say yes or I didn't say no. And then after the decision was made that oftentimes I didn't want to make, I would go back on that decision and it would have an impact on the people around me because of my yes not being yes and my no not being no. And so my ego then would get out the beating stick, start beating myself up, judging myself, and then it would become a victim and become try to get significance out of being a victim and getting the beating stick out. And so allowing our yes to be yes and our no being no, and just fucking making a decision. Because if you're watching this video, you are a king, or if you're a female, you are a queen. And so it's very, very important that we go through life. It's if it's not important to you, that's it may not be important to you. If you don't see yourself as a king or a queen, then don't fucking do what we're talking about. But if you are alive and you're breathing, you are a child of God. And if you want to be like a ship at sea without just being tossed around by the wind, don't do what we're talking about. But if you actually want direction and purpose and um, being in service to something way bigger than yourself, then this is who we're speaking to. And this is what the fruit of that will provide is making decisions. So what else do you have?
I feel really complete.
I want to bring up. I'm going to look in scripture for James. I'm not sure where the actual book is, but I want to share this before we go because it's relevant to this conversation. And if you're watching this video and you're like, well, what the fuck are they not saying something or what? And if you have any judgment right now, I invite you to look at where that judgment is within you because we're all mirrors. And if you're judging Neal or myself, that same thing is within you. So nothing is on the outside, it's all within. So it's an invitation. Okay. In James 1:6, it says, I'm going to go to 5. Actually, I'm going to invite you to read the whole chapter of James, like read the whole book of James. It's a very powerful book. It's amazing. But James 1:5 says, if any of you lacks wisdom, let him ask of God, who gives to all liberally and without reproach, and it will be given to him. So literally anything that you want to know, you can ask God.
Yeah,
But-
just like how the elites are saying, if you want to know something, just ask Chat GPT. Well, if you got faith, if you want to know something, just ask God. And tap into the actual the cloud, tap into the God cloud.
Yeah. But let him ask in faith with no doubting, for he who doubts is like a wave of the sea driven and tossed by the wind. For let not that man suppose that he will receive anything from the Lord. He is a double-minded man, unstable in all his ways. So this is very relevant in this conversation of making decisions and making a decision, yes or no, or even making a decision in general. Just make a fucking decision. And if it doesn't get you towards the direction that you're going, like, it's okay. Just reevaluate, reassess, and make another decision. But what I've done in the past is I was in these gray areas, and it doesn't feel good unless you want to be a whiny little fucking victim, whiny ass bitch like I was, like my ego was. So
yeah, I got an example of fruit of making a decision, and I had a call with this guy. I'm not gonna speak of his name on the podcast, but I know he probably would love it. And either way, I had like an hour conversation with this person, and it's the first time like I ever spoke to him for that extended period of time. And this person was living either in Indiana or in Michigan, but in that upper Indiana, Michigan area, and didn't have that many financial resources available, but made a decision to come and visit the village and visit Earthwaking and come to Costa Rica and bring a plane here and have a profound shift in environment, going from being in an environment where it's an environment of work and of jobs, which is an acronym for just over broke, and going from environment where it's like a hustle and bustle, focused on money environment, and going from that environment to a tropical environment where um, it's more laid back, and um, it's just a lot of nature. And the fruit of making a decision for him was that resources showed up, finances arrived, and this person is now scheduled to be here physically in the village, in Earthwaking Village. And I'm going to be interacting and communicating with this person that made a decision and then took action from the decision that they made. And the fruit is a complete alteration and change in environment.
Decisions. And if you want to make a decision to come to Costa Rica and experience what Neal just spoke of, make sure you check out the links in the description to get direction and guidance to experience heaven on earth. So, do you have anything? Do you feel complete?
I'm complete.
May the peace that transcends all understanding and God's unconditional love be with you. And until next time, peace.
Bye.